The house smelled like roasted turkey, buttered rolls, and cinnamon, warm, comforting scents that once meant home to me. Laughter drifted through the dining room, glasses clinked, chairs scraped against the hardwood floor. Everything looked perfect, like something pulled straight from a holiday magazine, except for me. I sat at the head of the table, my hands folded neatly in my lap, my spine straight despite the dull ache pulsing through my ribs. A faint tremor passed through my fingers, but I forced them still. The right side of my face throbbed under a thin layer of makeup that did little to hide the truth. A dark purple bruise blooming beneath my eye, edged with sickly yellow. No one asked about it. Not my daughter, not my son-in-law, not the guests filling the room with polite chatter. They saw it, of course they did, but they chose not to see me. My daughter sat across from me, radiant in a soft cream sweater, her hair perfectly styled, her wedding ring catching the light as she lifted her glass. She looked happy, truly happy, and for a moment my heart betrayed me. Pride swelled in my chest, the kind that had carried me through decades of sacrifice. I had raised her alone, fed her when I was hungry, worked nights, weekends, holidays. I had given her everything. Now she barely looked at me. "Mom," she said suddenly, her voice bright, almost playful, drawing attention from everyone at the table. You should have seen it. My stomach tightened. She laughed softly and waved her hand, as if brushing off a minor inconvenience. "The old man got what he deserved," she said, her words light, careless. "My husband taught him a lesson." The room erupted in uneasy laughter. Someone chuckled. Someone else cleared their throat. I felt the words hit me harder than the fist ever had. My son-in-law smiled, not a nervous smile, not an apologetic one. It was confident, satisfied. He reached for my daughter's hand and squeezed it, his thumb brushing over her knuckles like a reward. His eyes flicked toward me cold, daring me to speak. I didn't. What would I say? That the lesson had been delivered in my own kitchen. That I had been shoved against the counter, the wind knocked out of me as I tasted blood and fear. That I had looked into my daughter's husband's eyes and seen no remorse, only entitlement. That my own child had stood in the doorway and said nothing. I swallowed and forced a small smile, lifting my glass with steady hands. The turkey was carved, plates were passed, life went on. Inside me something cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that could never be repaired. I watched my daughter laugh, watched my son-in-law bask in admiration, watched the room pretend this was normal. And I realized something then, something painful and clarifying. They thought I was weak. They thought age had softened me, that years of endurance had worn me down into silence. They mistook my restraint for fear, my patience for surrender. They had no idea. Beneath the table, my fingers brushed against the smooth edge of a **, black envelope **, tucked safely inside my bag. I didn't pull it out yet. Revenge, I had learned, was not loud. It was patient, and Thanksgiving had only just begun. They like to say time heals everything. It doesn't. Time doesn't heal. It reveals It peels away illusions and leaves behind the truth, bare and unforgiving. And as I sat at that Thanksgiving table, smiling through pain, the past rose in me like a tide I could no longer hold back. I wasn't always the old man. Once I was just a father. I remembered the night my daughter was born, how small she was, how her fingers wrapped around mine as if she already knew I was hers forever. Her mother left before she could walk. No note, no goodbye, just an empty crib and silence that echoed for years. So I became everything. I learned how to braid hair with clumsy fingers. I packed lunches at dawn and worked until my hands split and bled. I stood in the back of school auditoriums after double shifts, half-ass, leap but smiling, because she was on stage and that was all that mattered. There were years I didn't eat dinner so she could. Years I wore the same coat through winters so she could have new shoes. I never complained. Love doesn't keep score. But somewhere along the way, love became asterisk expected asterisk. Then asterisk ignored asterisk. Then asterisk resented asterisk. When she met her husband, I knew something was off. He spoke softly, smiled often, but his eyes never warmed. They measured, calculated. I saw it immediately, the way he corrected her gently in public, the way she laughed it off, the way she slowly stopped calling me. He didn't push me out, he replaced me. At first it was subtle, missed dinners, unreturned calls, holidays too busy to visit. Then came the comments. You don't need to worry about Dad anymore. He's old-fashioned. He doesn't understand how things work now. I understood perfectly. I just wasn't useful to him. The day everything shattered, I went to their house unannounced. I had found the bank statements by accident, accounts in my name drained, signatures forged, money gone. My retirement, the last safety net I had, I wanted answers. I got a fist. He moved fast, too fast for someone who claimed innocence. I remember the sound more than the pain, the dull crack as my head hit the counter, the copper taste in my mouth. The room spinning as I struggled to breathe, and my daughter, she stood there, frozen, watching. He told her I attacked him. Said I was confused, aggressive, unstable. He spoke calmly, convincingly, like a man who had practiced the lie. She believed him, or maybe believing him was easier than facing the truth. That night, as I lay alone in my dark apartment, ice pressed to my face, something inside me finally broke. Not my body, my hope. I stopped being the father who begged to be understood. I stopped trying to explain. I stopped reaching for love that was no longer offered. Instead, I started remembering every document, every conversation, every discrepancy. They thought they broke me that night. They didn't. They woke me up. And as I sat at the Thanksgiving table, listening to my daughter laugh about my pain, I realized something else. The man they tried to destroy was gone. What remained was someone far more dangerous, someone who no longer needed their approval, someone who had nothing left to lose, and everything carefully prepared. The plates were nearly empty when I finally moved. Turkey bones lay stripped and forgotten, gravy congealing at the edges of porcelain. The room had grown louder with wine and comfort, the kind of noise people make when they believe the night belongs to them. My daughter was laughing again. I watched her the way one watches a stranger carefully, from a distance. I wondered when her laughter stopped sounding like mine. I reached for my bag. The leather whispered softly as I opened it, a small sound, but it cut through the room like a blade. My fingers closed around the envelope I had carried for weeks, heavier than paper had any right to be. Black mat unmarked, I stood. Conversation slowed. Chairs creaked. A few eyes drifted toward me, curious now, not concerned. I stepped around the table and stopped beside my daughter. She looked up at me, surprised, her smile faltering. "Dad," she said, "what are you doing?" I placed the envelope in front of her. No drama, no announcement. "Just the soft tap of truth against polished wood, for you," I said, her brow furrowed as she picked it up. The room leaned in without realizing it. Her husband shifted in his chair, the first sign of unease flickering across his face. She opened it. The color drained from her skin as she pulled out the first page, then the second, then the third. Her hands began to shake. Inside were copies, never originals. I wasn't careless. Police reports detailing the assault. Photographs of my injuries taken the same night, time. Stamped and signed. Bank statements showing money moved from my accounts into his. Signature comparisons. Emails printed in neat order. A forensic report confirming forgery. And at the bottom, a notarized statement. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked at her husband. He didn't smile this time. "What is this?" she whispered the truth. I said quietly. He stood so fast his chair scraped violently against the floor. "This is ridiculous." He snapped. "He's lying. He's always been unstable." "Sit down," I said. I didn't raise my voice. He froze. I met his eyes for the first time that evening, really met them, and let him see what lived there now. Not fear, not weakness, resolve, you already said that. I continued calmly to her, to yourself, to the bank, to the officer who didn't believe me, at first. A murmur rippled through the room. I turned to my daughter. There's more, I said. The originals are with my lawyer. Charges were filed last week. The accounts are frozen, and tomorrow morning the company you work for will receive a copy of the financial investigation. Her face flushed deep red, then white. You wouldn't, she said, standing now, voice breaking. You'd destroy us. I tilted my head slightly. No, I said. I'm just not protecting him anymore. Silence fell heavy and absolute. For the first time in years, I watched my daughter really see her husband, his clenched jaw, the panic behind his eyes, the way he stepped back instead of forward. I didn't wait for apologies. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I picked up my coat. As for the lesson, I said, pausing at the doorway, you were right. I looked directly at him. I learned it, and then I left them there, at a table full of witnesses, surrounded by the ruins of their certainty. Revenge is often imagined as something loud, shouting, accusations, public collapse, but real revenge, the kind that lasts, arrives quietly. It doesn't ask for attention, it doesn't need applause. It simply lets consequences do their work. In the weeks after Thanksgiving, I watched everything unfold from a distance. The investigation moved quickly. Once the evidence was undeniable, accounts were frozen, then seized. Questions were asked at my son-in-law's workplace, questions he could not charm his way out of. His name appeared in places he never wanted it to. Court documents, internal audits, whispered conversations that stopped when he entered the room. Power abandoned him. My daughter came to my apartment one evening, unannounced. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of certainty, her eyes red and swollen from nights without sleep. I didn't know, she said, standing in my doorway. I swear I didn't know. I believed that she didn't know everything. But I also knew she hadn't wanted to. You knew enough. I replied gently. She cried then, deep, broken sobs that echoed through the room. She apologized for the bruise, for the silence, for choosing comfort over truth. I listened. That was all I owed her. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, but please don't disappear. I looked at her for a long moment. This was the child I once held at 3 a.m, feverish and afraid. The same child who had watched me bleed and turned away. Some wounds heal, I said. Some just teach us where to stand. I didn't close the door on her, but I didn't open my life wide again either. Her husband was arrested 2 months later. No drama, no spectacle, just a knock at the door and handcuffs clicking shut. I wasn't there to see it. I was elsewhere walking through a park, sunlight warming my face, breathing freely for the first time in years. The black eye faded, the scars inside took longer, but I healed. I learned to live without waiting for gratitude, without begging for understanding. I learned that love should never require silence to survive. On the next Thanksgiving, I ate alone. And I was not lonely. I set the table simply, cooked only what I wanted. I raised a glass to no one but myself. To endurance, to truth, to the quiet strength of walking away whole. They thought they broke an old man. What they really did was give him back his life. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.